My father was born in Stamps, Arkansas, and the family moved to Trout, Louisiana, and he went to Trout High School, graduated at age 16 and went to LSU. And as far as I know, he was probably the first one in the family to go to college. He graduated from law school in 1926, and he and Bob Kennan, Robert Kennan, who was later governor, became friends through the ROTC program there, and Kennan was from Minden. This is his home, so he had planned to come back here. He got out of law school, I believe, a year before my dad, and offered my dad a job to come to Minden to practice with him. So Dad came back here in 1926, and Kennan was the youngest mayor, I think, to have ever been elected in the state of Louisiana at that time, and they formed a practice of Kennan and Kitchens. And they practiced together. Of course, Mr. Kennan got involved in politics and became a DA and then a judge and ultimately governor. My mother was from a little place in Bienville Parish called Sparta, which is near a larger city, which is a town, which is Bienville. Went to old North Louisiana Hospital over in Shreveport and took nursing, became a registered nurse, and came to Minden to be a nurse at Minden Hospital, and she joined First Baptist Church. My father, in 1926, came back up here and joined First Baptist Church. So it wasn't very long thereafter that the two of them fell in love together, and so they were married in, I think, 32. Dad talked to us a lot at home about what he did as a lawyer. He represented a man from Cotton Valley who had been charged with murder. And I remember going down to the old courthouse in Minden and watching that. When I went to LSU and enrolled, I told them the only thing I wanted to do was get me a degree where I could go to law school. I didn't care what it was, really. I graduated in January of '64. One of my friends was Herman Sockrider, was a law clerk for Judge Hood at the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. And while I was studying for the bar exam in April, Sock contacted me and said that he had a job in Shreveport with Booth Lockard Jack firm, and but the Judge Hood wouldn't let him out of his contract with him unless he got a replacement. So he asked me, would I replace him? I had a job lined up as law clerk for Judge Dawkins that didn't start till July the 1st. So between April and July, I went to Lake Charles and took Sock's place as a law clerk for Judge Tom Hood. And there was a man that really had an impact in the legal profession, in my way of thinking, on me, because that was a fine man, and I really learned a lot and enjoyed working for him. Then I came up here and worked a year for Judge Dawkins. The first case that he gave me to write an opinion on, he didn't tell me anything about how he thought it ought to be decided, involved the Webster Parish Registrar of Voters, Ms. Winnie Clements. And the lawsuit had been brought against her because of voting irregularities. And so, sure enough, that's what Judge Dawkins found, and I...
Allowing people to be registered to vote, or the voting process itself?
It was, well, both. It was the process that was depriving certain citizens of their ability to register and vote. Mm-hmm. And so...
Who brought the suit? The NAACP? Probably
so. I don't remember if there were any individuals involved in it. I don't remember their names. But I mean, I decided it, and you know, my recommended decision was that he find that there were irregularities and found against the registrar of my own home parish, Minden, Louisiana, you know. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of got me off to a start with him as not ducking hard cases. Mm-hmm. I started practice in 1965 with my father, Kitchens and Kitchens. And we practiced together for 5 years. During that time, we did not have an ID board or public defender's office. So all the young guys in town got appointed to represent the persons charged with crimes. It was Judge McClendon who I replaced when I became district judge. And he had a tremendous impact on my life. We became very good friends. And I'll tell you something, I always say that there were really two judges whom I had so much respect for that they really impacted my decision making and my ability to have a practical approach to the practice of law, result type practice, you know. And Judge McClendon was certainly one of those. And the second one would probably surprise you, Judge R.B. Williams. And the thing is, Judge Williams was married to my father's first cousin. And R.B. was there in Natchitoches, and I mean, as a family, we had known each other and grown up. Well, when I became judge, I went to they had a judges meeting in Natchitoches one year, and R.B. was kind of overall head of that thing. And so he kind of took an interest in me. And I'll never forget, there was a case that I had when I became district judge. You'd know about it if I tell you who the name was, but there was a lawyer from Shreveport who was really giving me a hard time as a judge, worst I ever had. And I just knew that I was going to have to hold him in contempt of court. I could see it coming. And I'd never held a lawyer in contempt of court. And I really needed some guidance about that. And I called Judge R.B. Williams. And I told him, I said, I've got this case, and I kind of described some about it. I said, it looks to me like I'm going to have to hold this lawyer in contempt. What can you tell me about it? What advice can you give me? And he told me this I never forgot. He said, you just remember that when you hold a lawyer in contempt, you become the defendant from then on. So I thought about that, and I held that lawyer in contempt. And you know what? He was right. From then on, it was him versus me, and I became the defendant because the lawyer can initiate things, you know, and I was sort of reactive rather than acting. So anyway, but those two judges meant a lot to me. 1980, there was a murder in Bossier by a young man named Alvin Moore. And he and two other people broke into a house and burglarized the house. And there was a young mother there in the house with about a 4-month-old baby in the crib. And they took stuff out to the car, and Alvin went back in the house. He told his other buddies to stay outside, and he went back in the house, and while he was in there, he raped the woman and stabbed her 17 times and killed her. Didn't hurt the baby. But she had recognized him because he used to work with her husband at a manufacturing place. And she was able to call the police and tell them. They thought that she said some other name. It was close to Alvin, Alton or something like that. But they were able to piece it together. And so Alvin Moore got arrested and charged with first-degree murder. And I'd had first-degree murder cases then and since then, but most of them would come back second-degree verdicts where the death penalty was not involved. But Alvin was found guilty by the jury, and that was the first time I had the responsibility to sign somebody's death certificate. And that was a real experience for me. I always said that I believed in the death penalty, but you don't really have your feelings about the death penalty challenged until you have to sign somebody's death certificate. So I signed his death certificate. Well, over a period of 2 or 3 years, he was going up through the appellate process, and he'd get up to the point of execution, and he'd have a stay order from federal to state court, and every time that was denied, I had to sign another death certificate. So I just was signing, I must have signed 5 or 6 death certificates for Alvin Moore. And so I called the chaplain down at Angola and made an appointment with him and made arrangements to go down there. And on a Saturday, I drove to Angola. And it was quite an experience. I'd never been there. And to go on death row, you have to go through all the security and everything. And I had the chaplain meet me at the gate and walk me through it. And we went to death row and sat with a screen between us, and they brought Alvin in and talked with him. And I was able to talk with Alvin, and I had brought him a New Testament, and I shared the gospel with him and talked to him about the plan of salvation, and I offered him the New Testament, and he allowed me to give it to him. And I was able to see a guard search it, make sure there was no contraband in the book, but he did give it to him. And so, and we had prayer with him, both the chaplain and myself, and we put our hands on the screen. He put his hand on the other side, so we were together like that while we prayed. And Alvin, he assured me that he believed that he had accepted Christ as his Savior at some point in his life already, and he thought he was going to heaven when he died. And I couldn't contradict that. I mean, that's a decision between himself and God. And so, but anyway, it was quite a moving experience for me. We met at the Baptist Student Center at LSU. We dated at the Baptist Student Center at the LSU. And then when we got married in the Baptist Student Center at LSU. And then when we came back to law school, we lived in the BSU. We were the bouncers, so to speak. We married in June of 1960 while I was still in the Army. And we have 3 children. There are times where both lawyers and judges have an opportunity to really be involved in somebody's life and to make a difference in their life. To me, that's what it's about. And if I can find a situation where, whether I'm a lawyer or I'm a judge, I've been able to be involved in somebody's life and I can see that I've been able to help them and it changed their life, that's the most meaningful thing to me.